There he stood on the corner of Dando Ave and Water Street, a king without a crown? No, not quite. His throne? There was no throne. This is a bullshit story, made by Gumby's cousin. Gumby slung rhymes, good times, sold dimes, and possibly maybe had a gun touching his spine. He started rapping back at Applebee's in the dish pit. And now? Now he rapped in the streets. This was Gumby's kingdom, and his voice, raw and powerful, he believed was the law. Gumby wasn't a singer, no crooner of sweet melodies. Shit, he was not the best dancer either. Word on the street was, the boy, Gumby. He could draw a mean crayon picture. He was a rapper, a poet of the pavement, spitting rhymes faster than a speeding bullet. His words, sharp and jagged, cut through the air, painting pictures of life on the streets, stories of struggle and survival. He didn't need no fancy studio, no expensive beats. Would have been nice, though, to record off the street. Just the rhythm of the city, the pulse of the streets, and the fire in his soul. It also did not put soup in his bowl. That was Gumby, the best damn lyricist this city ever heard, even if they never heard him on the radio. Gumby's mind was a whirlwind of words, a symphony of slang and street smarts. Rhymes tumbled out of him like loose change, each one a reflection of his reality. He saw poetry in the cracks of the sidewalk, heard music in the rumble of the Grand River Transit bus. He'd spend hours in his room, a cramped space barely big enough to hold his dreams, scribbling verses in worn notebooks. His pen was his weapon, his words his ammunition, firing off lines about money, drugs and bitches, and the struggle to exist in a world that often overlooked him. Dreaming about his raps. Sometimes, late at night, when the city slept under a blanket of darkness, he'd whisper his rhymes to himself. Each syllable a prayer, a promise to never let the streets steal his voice, his truth. He grew up on a steady diet of hip-hop royalty. Eminem's raw anger, Busta Rhymes' lyrical dexterity, Cypress Hill's smooth grooves, Wu-Tang Clan's gritty tales of the streets, and when no one was home, the Village People. They were his soundtrack, his inspiration. Their voices echoed in his head, urging him to speak his truth, to paint his own lyrical masterpiece. He'd spend hours dissecting their rhymes, studying their flow, trying to decipher the magic behind their words. He saw himself in their stories, felt their struggles in his bones. They were more than just rappers to Gumby. They were prophets, guiding him on his own lyrical journey. He didn't need no stage, no spotlight. The streets were his concert hall, the buildings his backdrop. The wail of a siren, the screech of tires, the rumble of the train going over the train bridge beside GCI. They were all part of his symphony. He'd start to rap on a corner, only a homeless person his audience to start. His voice booming through the concrete jungle, drawing a crowd of fellow high school students for his brand of truth. They'd gather around, captivated by his flow, his words painting vivid pictures in their minds, of violent crimes, good times, and banging dimes. Gumby. He spoke for the voiceless. Dead people are dead, no brains in their head. Gumby gave a voice to the forgotten corners of the city. Where am I lost, it's cold out, I see frost. His rhymes were their stories, his pain their pain. A family man's burden. Gumby settled down and found a lady and had some kids. Gumby, the young poet with fire in his eyes, was growing older. He had a family now, a wife and kids who depended on him, who looked at him with love and hope in their eyes. The streets, once his muse, now felt like a threat. He had seen so much violence. Every siren was a reminder of the danger lurking around every corner, every gunshot a hammer blow to his heart. He couldn't bear the thought of leaving his family behind, or worse, them falling victim to the game in the streets. He worried about them becoming another tragic headline. He loved rapping, pouring his soul onto the pavement, but the love for his family burned brighter. He had to make a choice, his passion or their safety. The city holds its breath. The city was a powder keg, ready to explode. Tension crackled in the air, thick and suffocating. Drive-bys happened with alarming regularity, the staccato rhythm of gunshots becoming a terrifying soundtrack to everyday life. The police patrolled the streets with a heavy hand, their eyes scanning for any sign of trouble, any infraction that would justify their presence. They saw shadows in every corner, threats in every face. It felt like the whole city was holding its breath, waiting for the next explosion. Fear was a constant companion, a shadow that followed you home at night and lingered at the edge of every conversation. It was a dangerous time to be young, a dangerous time to be anyone on the streets, a dangerous time to be alive. Shadows in the daylight. The violence seeped into every crevice of their lives, a dark stain that refused to be washed away. Kids couldn't play in the park without fear, due to daylight violence. Families couldn't walk down the street without looking over their shoulders for crackhead junkies. The streets of Cambridge, once a place of community, of shared laughter and dreams, were now battlegrounds. Every corner held a memory of a life cut short, a future stolen. The shadows stretched long, even in the daylight, a constant reminder of the danger lurking beneath the surface. Gumby watched it all unfold, his heart heavy with a grief he couldn't articulate. He poured his pain into his rhymes, his words a lament for a city teetering on the brink. A legacy unrecorded. He still wrote, of course, but the notebooks piled up in his drawer, filled with rhymes that would never be heard. He couldn't justify risking his family's safety for his art, no matter how much it burned inside him. He became a ghost in his own kingdom, his voice silenced by the fear that choked the city. He'd see the longing in the eyes of the people on the street, the unspoken question hanging in the air. When will you rap for us again? He had no answers for them, only the hollow echo of what could have been. Gumby, the king without a crown, was left to watch as his kingdom crumbled around him, his legacy a whisper on the wind. The poet's silence. Some might say Gumby was a coward, that he let fear silence his gift. But they didn't know the weight of a family's love, the crushing responsibility of keeping them safe in a world determined to swallow them whole. His silence was a testament to that love, a sacrifice made in the name of survival. It was a silence that spoke volumes about the harsh realities of their lives, the impossible choices they were forced to make. And so, the city lost its poet, the streets their voice. But in the quiet moments when the sirens were silent and the gunfire had ceased, Gumby could still hear the echoes of his rhymes, a bittersweet reminder of the king he once was.
Well, well, well. I bet this would have been a way better documentary with my voice. Barnabas McGillicuddy. Helen, why did they pick that thing? Yes, the young woman who just recorded "That Was a Man." And because someone said I put people to sleep? Well, fuck them. Who was it? Helen, who was it? Ryan? Fucking Ryan? Who is that?